Democrats have been trying to destroy Judge Brett Kavanaugh since the very first second he was announced. But all you have to do is look at the polls over the last 3 or 4 days, and it shows that their rage-fueled resistance is starting to backfire at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
Donald Trump has used the Kavanaugh confirmation battle to rev up his base, but the political repercussions of confirming Kavanaugh remain an open question. In fact, we may not know whether the sugar high from confirming Kavanaugh will fuel Republican voters right up to Election Day, or whether Democratic and independent women will decide that revenge is best served at the ballot box. Tiffany Cross is back with me, and also joining the table, Democratic pollster Cornell Belcher, Jason Johnson, politics editor at TheRoot.com, and in the box, Republican strategist Katon Dawson. Thank you all for being here. Since you're at a disadvantage, Katon, I'll go to you first. These are the Democrats who voted, who are in red states Trump won, who voted against Kavanaugh. Joe Donnelly in Indiana, Doug Jones of Alabama, who better not, because black women would come for him, Claire McCaskill of Missouri, John Tester of Montana, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Bill Nelson of Florida. Only Joe Manchin was a yes, and he's from West Virginia. Do you, as a Republican strategist, believe that Republicans now have a chance to pick off some of those seats as a result of the Kavanaugh nomination?
I do, Joy. The fear that we had on the business side of Republican politics and campaigns and elections was that our electorate was a little bit flat, and not that they were unexcited, but history shows you that there's a 20% drop between a presidential election and an election in the midterm. So I think what it's done is it's told the base that your vote does matter, and it's made them politically aware. The problem we have is 30-something days till an election cycle is a lifetime in politics, and how do you keep it up? The Democratic base was already energized. They didn't like Donald Trump. And what you're seeing here is some of the reverse could happen to the Republican Party. We were able to gain 1,400-something legislative seats all over the country, and usually in the midterms you'll catch about 375 seats. So the ramifications of this 2018 midterms goes much lower than a lot of people are talking about. And then it comes into the redistricting maps, the governor's races. So has it been a help to the Republican base and the Republican Party? Right now it is. Our numbers are moving up. Our voters are aware, and they're motivated. 30 days is a long time in this business.
Yeah, to hold on to it. And I'll come to you on that, Cornell, because you now have, let's think about some of the more endangered Democrats. Claire McCaskill, who's always, let's just face it, every time she comes up for re-election, she's at 45.6 versus Josh Hawley, who's at 46. So it's within the margin of error, but that's the Real Clear Politics average. The Cook Political Report has now shifted 3 Senate races toward Republicans as a result of what we've seen this week. And that, of course, would be Tester, the Nebraska, New Jersey races. They're actually shifting them toward the Republican Party. Can the Republicans sustain that kind of a, I'm calling it a sugar high, but can they sustain it for 30 days?
Well, let me level set for a moment here. I mean, our last guest did make a very valid point, is that there's a tremendous drop-off from presidential to midterm. But what's in the details is most of that drop-off is, in fact, among Democrats, right? So there is anywhere from a 15 to 16% drop-off from 65-plus performing. I'm going to get real weedy with you. Yeah. 65-plus performing.
Oh, no, I'm a nerd. I like it.
65-plus performing Dem precincts versus 65-plus performing Republican precincts. So the drop-off is very slight from Republican precincts. Our problem is there's a different electorate in off years. So if we had the 2010 or 2014 electorate, Democrats are not going to have a very poor year. But if we have a electorate that looks more like 2012, we have a good year. So when you look at Republican enthusiasm catching up, it's actually it's not a bad thing for Democrats because they had to catch up with Democrats when it's usually the Democrat enthusiasm is so far behind Republicans. So this is a year where we have sort of enthusiasms measuring each other. But Joy, the problem is they don't have enough people.
What do you mean they don't have enough people?
If you look at the partisanship, the Republican Party has been shrinking as partisan identification, largely because of Trump. If you look at sort of the number of independents right now, and you look at sort of the partisanship around Democrats, Republicans they are not an expanding party. Right.
But they showed, Jason, that they could still win. Yes. Being a party that is getting down to basically white voters, including some white college-educated voters. The congressional ballot right now, Real Clear Politics average, has Democrats 48.5, Republicans 48.3. But the big factor has always been whether educated white women would shift over toward the Democratic Party, which thus far they really haven't. Right. And so you have 58% of college-educated white women saying the Senate should reject Kavanaugh's nomination. I have yet to see that translate into a majority of white female voters voting for Democrats, but I mean, anything could happen, right?
It probably won't, but I think there's a bit of history here that we can pay attention to. Everybody talked this week about like Clarence Thomas and Nita Hill.
Yep.
You know, that was the year of the women in 1992, and the Clarence Thomas, that was 13 months before the election. Right. This is 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People are still going to be angry in 4 weeks. And so I think there's an enthusiasm level here. There's been a change. All these people out marching, all these people out registering to vote. And I also think this, and this is something I talked about with Georgia and Brian Kemp and some of these local races. You have Republicans who have taken a stand on an issue that doesn't have anything to do with them. Like, if you come up and say, hey, I support Brett Kavanaugh and you're running for Attorney General, all you've done is put a millstone around your neck. You don't have anything to do with it. So I think that this is going to be sustainable. Now, are Republicans more excited? Yeah. But you know what? After you win the Super Bowl, you get drunk, you go to sleep, and you forget the next day. They win today, and then they're going to be done in another month. So I think it's an overall plus for the Dems. So,
and you know, Tiffany, one of the things, a friend of mine who is a white Democratic woman from the South, which is a rarity at this point, but she is, said to me that the concern is that white college-educated women who weren't necessarily paying all that much attention or weren't enthusiastic about voting are going to look at Kavanaugh and say, well, my son, who's in a fraternity and in an elite college, is Kavanaugh, and it's going to drive them back into the Republican camp. Are you seeing that out there?
Yeah, I think that's actually a real possibility, maybe even a probability at this point. But I think that's even more of a reason why some of these candidates who are having challenges need to focus on communities of color. You talked about Claire McCaskill. One of her challenges is the black people in her state. They're not really connecting with her. She tried to have people sign on to a letter to support her. Congressman Emanuel Cleaver declined to sign on to that letter. So she would pay attention to some of those marginalized communities outside of election years that may help you. Susan Collins, when she gave that speech on the floor, she raised over $3 million, $50,000 of which came during the speech that she was giving on the floor to her opponent.
Right.
And so, and it's an unnamed opponent. There's not even anybody challenging her at this point. People are saying anybody but you. In 2020, Susan Rice, as you pointed out, did tweet that maybe she'll run, which drummed up a lot of support. You also have Lisa Murkowski, who knows Native Alaskans. That's an indispensable base for her. They make up more than 15% of the population in Alaska. She can't afford to lose them. We talked about Tim Scott and his vote. He has political aspirations. He's talked about running for governor of South Carolina.
Right.
What's a whole lot of black people in South Carolina who are going to look at this this Supreme Court's nominee's record on race, as we talked about in the last segment, who are going to look at him sideways because he voted for him. So we've had Andrew Jans on the show before. In Devin Nunes district was a majority-minority district. And yet this hard right-wing Republican is running. Andrew Jans, who's trying to challenge him, trying to unseat him, he's reached out to some of these communities of color. When we had Andrew Gillum, everybody said, what? Who is he? Where did he come from? Were y'all not watching Joy Reid? Because we've talked about it on the show many times and predicted a win for him. So I think when we talk about, there's been this huge effort, like, oh, we got to talk about these, white college-educated women. There have been all these panels across different networks. So tell us how you feel. I don't remember this kind of enthusiasm to understand the Obama voters, but there is some sort of like weird obsession with let's try to understand these women and why they like Trump. And I think we need to focus on the hardcore base who've been with the Democratic Party for a long time and not these new people who come out of the woodwork.
Can I get one quick point in? CBC PAC is doing independent expenditure this year. Their IE program, just pull a whole lot of the field for them. They'll be rolling it out this week. We'll talk to you about it. It shows, almost 40% of African-American women, no college, under age 50, aren't familiar with either candidates and running for Congress in their district.
Wow.
If we don't have a blue wave, it's because we're not doing the work we need to be doing with millennials and people of color.
And black rural voters.
Yes.
Because I know in the South there are a lot of black rural voters, we talked about it in the break, are being left on the table because Democrats aren't going out there and registering them to vote.
That's absolutely. There's a lot of black people in rural America.
Yeah.
But rural America is not monolithic and just white.
And they're not getting polled, right? Which is why the biggest issue.
Because the Democrats are not.
Because the Democrats they're not hiring the gentleman here. How can you not notice him? But here's the thing, and that's how you saw what happened in Alabama. That's what you have happening with Gilliam. That's what you have happening right now with Stacey Abrams. Because also what you see is when these voters are activated, right? The Republicans haven't even paid that much attention to them. They haven't paid that much attention to suppress their vote. So these people can actually go out and move. The electorate is going to be a lot browner than a lot of the pollsters know, and that's working the advantage of Democrats.
I just want to say quickly, Latino voters are also widely ignored as well.
Absolutely. All right, lightning round, then we have to go. Katon Dawson, does the Kavanaugh nomination help Democrats more or Republicans more? One-word answer.
Republicans.
Jason.
Republicans.
I'm not sure.
I say Democrats.
All right. Well, we have our poll. Thank you very much, Tiffany Cross and Cornell Belcher. We have to have you guys come back again and again and again.